Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to discuss the other topics, which is declaration of a variable, initialization of a variable, what is reference variable, what are the operators, and one topic which is scope resolution operator. Now, coming back to this first topic, which is declaration as well as initialization of variables. Okay, so variable, as you know, as the name says, variable is the value which is not constant. Okay, so that is, now first how to declare a variable. So whenever you want to declare a variable, after writing your main function or any kind of function, in that function the first section should be always your declaration section. Okay, so that is, first I am going to declare a variable, that is float. I will define some variable called as y. Now, so this is how we are going to declare a variable. So if you want to consider the syntax of it, what is the syntax? First you are going to have written what? The data type. So the syntax of declaring a variable, that is how to declare a variable. For that we have a syntax like, first you are going to represent the data type. What is the type of data that you want to store? Then it will be followed by the variable name. Okay, now that will be the syntax. Now in this case, data type, so you know you have integer, character, float, double, boolean, all those things all be like data types. It will be followed by the variable name. So this variable name, what you have mentioned, it will be following the rules of identifiers. I told you in the first session of this chapter, like what is identifiers? Identifiers are nothing but the names that you are going to specify for variables, functions or user defined types. Now, what rules that we mentioned in identifiers will be applied for variables also. So, now you need to remember that while you are defining any kind of variables. Next thing is initialization. Initialization is nothing but the process of assigning initial value. It is, we are giving some initial value to that particular variable. That is like initialization. Now, if I write something, a variable like integer a, and if I assign some value for it like 10, this process is nothing but whenever a memory is allocated for this particular variable a, I am going to assign the value as 10 to it. If you consider y is not initialized. Now if I try to print the value of y, it will show some unwanted value like some a, b, c or something like that, but I have defined it as float, but it will be showing some garbage values, unwanted values. Why is that? Because whatever data that is previously stored in that particular memory, the same data will be shown if I am using like this. If I don't want that and my data has to be having some initial value, then I will be writing something like this, integer a equal to 10. So what is the syntax here? Here the syntax will be like the same thing, first data type and that will be followed by the variable, and we are going to use assignment operator and that will be followed by the value. That is how we are going to use in the case of initialization of a variable. Okay, so this you have already studied in your C programming. The same thing we are going to see in C++ too. Now, second thing is, the third topic is a reference variable. What is reference variable is, if I want to create a variable which will be like the value will be similar to that of previous variable, but only thing is I am going to call it with some other name. Like say if a person is having two names, you can ask him, or if you want you can call him with any names, any of the two names. Similarly, if I want to create a variable that has two names, in that case I will be using a reference variable. So how to define a reference variable is, I'll be writing the same data type, suppose say integer. I'll be using an operator which is ampersand operator or address operator. This operator will be followed by the new name I want and the variable that I want to assign. Okay, this type of assigning is nothing but how to create a reference variable. So here first you are going to use the data type. That data type will be followed by an operator which is ampersand operator, and the existing variable, the new variable which will be assigned to existing variable. Okay, so that is how we are going to define a reference variable. So where it is just like alias, in the sense you can have two variables with same value. Okay, it is not like pointer. You are going to actually create two different variables. Okay, two different memory spaces. In that two different memory spaces you have the copy of that value. Okay, now coming back to the next topic, which is operators. Operators, if you want to do some any kind of calculation, we will be using operators, which are the special symbols like your plus, minus, multiplication, division, or the special type of symbols which will be used for performing some calculations. Okay, so that is operators. Under operators you have unary operator, binary operator, ternary operator. Unary operator is the operator which contains which will be used with only one operand. For example, I want to specify minus 20. In this case, minus is an operator, 20 is an operand. This is an operand, this is operator. Okay. Now this operator is having how many operands? Only one operand. Then this operator will be acting as what? Unary operator. You can write something like this, like 20 plus plus, or a plus plus, I plus plus, minus minus I. All these things will be acting as what? It will be acting as unary operator. Okay. Again, next is binary operator. As I told you, binary operator is any operator which has two operands. In that case, we will consider it as binary operator. Again, last ternary operator, like your conditional statements. We will have A greater than B, question mark, A followed by B. So this type of operator we will consider it as ternary operator. So example of this is conditional operator, where we will have three operators, three operands, 1, 2 and 3. We have three operands, then that type of operator we will consider it as ternary operator. So this example is conditional operator. Now while coming for these topics you have already studied in C programming, the same operators we are going to repeat in C++ also. Like binary, if you consider binary operators, you have arithmetic operators, logical operators. Arithmetic operators, you know, like what is plus, minus, multiplication, division, all these things are binary operators. Again, coming back to this is arithmetic operators. If you consider relational operator, under relational operator we have greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. All these things will be like relational operators. So these things we are going to study in deep in coming chapters. So whatever operators you have studied in the C programming, the same thing will be applied in C++ also. Now, a new type of operator that you want to study is called as scope resolution operator. Scope resolution operator is, if you are using a colon, you will be using colon, right? This colon if you are using twice, This operator we are going to consider it as scope resolution operator. So what is the use of scope resolution operator is, this operator will help you to access the values or the variables that is defined outside the scope. For example, if I define a variable like integer x, I'll assign some value, say I'll assign 100. I have written, say, consider we have written the header file hash include iostream.h. Now after that again I will define void main, and I have defined integer x. Okay, and for this x I am going to assign the value as say 50. Okay, suppose if I try to print, I am writing cout statement, I will be writing x. Now what will be the output of this? Now if you consider, if this is my program, in this program I have two variables, x as well as x. X has been declared or defined twice. Okay, now this variable will be acting as global variable because that variable is defined outside the function. Now this variable will be acting as what? This variable will be acting as local variable because it is defined within this main function. Now if I try to print x, my output will be like 50. Now if I, what is the use of scope resolution operator is, if I have a similar kind of variables that is defined both in function as well as outside the function, and I want to access a variable with same name that is defined outside this particular scope. Okay, now you know scope is nothing but the lifetime of that particular operator, that particular variable. If you consider this variable is what? Local variable, in the sense this variable will be used only between main function opening brackets and closing brackets. I cannot use that in other functions because it is defined only for this main function. That is why it is considered as local variable. Wherever if you consider this particular variable x, that is global. Since it is global, that can be accessed in main function and also it can be accessed in other function. Okay, so now but both the variables are having a same name, which is x. Now if I try to print the value of x in this main function, it is going to print the value as 50 because it is going to give the preference for the local variable first. Okay, now I want to print this variable, then in that case I will be using cout followed by the scope resolution operator and it will be followed by x. In this case the value will be what? The value will be 100 because it is going to access the variable x which is outside the scope. Okay, so this is how we are going to use scope resolution operator. Not only this, we have other functions for this scope resolution operator that we will be discussing in the next session. Hope these topics are clear. At the end of this chapter, I will be having a separate session on the Google Meet so that we can discuss all these doubts. Thank you.